commercial intermission.
We can edit it though.
Rachel, add this to the beginning.
Yeah,
I will.
yeah.
Don't add it to the beginning.
Shameless plug. We still have some payload opportunities on Vestry flying next year, 2026. Hit me up on the payload page of the AstroForge website,
Which is?
astroforge.com.
/payload.
Like, do you have to say that anymore?
I don't know. I just want to kind of know if Krystle knew what her website was.
Oh, okay. That's
It's
fair.
actually
After
a
her
podcast.
answer to the
Yeah.
last
Oh,
question,
yeah,
I'm going to start
after hers,
deflecting.
like-
All right.
Perfect.
Welcome to episode 20 of Roid Rage. We have somehow made it to 20 episodes without any significant catastrophe. I guess every catastrophe is significant. Never mind. Today, we're going to talk about space economy. We have Krystle back joining with us, in addition to Robyn and Matt. Krystle, how are you? It's been a
Good.
while.
It's been a minute.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me back.
I mean,
Last time.
Yeah, we'll see.
You said that last time.
It's
though.
probationary.
yeah. I mean, it's hard to drag us down. We're already skimming the bottom here. Awesome. All right. Well, we're going to talk about Matt's favorite topic, which is space economy. My script says that it's not just a buzzword. I sort of think it is just a buzzword, and I'm going to let all of you prove me wrong. So,
I'm not going to prove you wrong. It's completely a buzzword. Like, this
you
has
gotta at
never.
least make an attempt. You can't just
I'm
like come
not
off the
going
bat
to
and
make
say-
an attempt. This has never been this whole idea of like the space economy that we talk about. I think is just total. It's like saying there's an automobile economy. Like, sure, there's people that sells cars, but space is a means to an end, right? That is what we are trying to do. Nobody actually cares about purchasing a launch or a satellite. It's what do you do with that, and what can you sell to customers with it? And that is always going to fall in different buckets. Mainly communications. That's mainly what we lump in to be the space economy. Right, but
well,
as you-
Earth observations as well.
There's quite a bit.
Okay, you can look at planet stock price and really see how much that is there. Sure, Earth observation is part of it. There's some human space flight as we go through, but when you use the word space economy, everybody's mind goes to like, oh, we're gonna have space stations with tourists on them, and we're
Yes.
gonna
Yeah, we
sell
are.
Arthur C. Clarke.
resources.
Literally just worked
2001.
and We're gonna have
Literally just worked on that.
2001 and whatever.
Ice
and-
Pirates.
Ice Pirates, whatever movie Robyn's referring to, and all this kind of weird shit that happened in the 80s that never really materialized. I hope one day that all comes true, but as of today, that's just not the case.
It was way before the 80s, by the way. Just, I know that's the first decade that you can remember, but
I feel like there was
assure
lots of drugs in the 80s, and it led to lots of sci-fi movies that were really cool.
you. I mean, every decade has
Yeah.
kind of had its like drug of choice. You know, the 80s. Oh, actually, you know what? I'm going to back up. Next question, Chap.
No,
I mean, my last company worked on space stations. So yeah, I mean, I think that it is a buzzword, but I think what it signifies is that people still view space as this other thing instead of kind of intertwined with their portfolio or their data stack or whatever, right? The same way we looked at internet and, other emerging tech. So, it's
Oh, that's a good one. The internet economy.
right.
That's actually a really good analogy.
So, I mean, I think that includes everything that we're traditionally thinking of, but it's also now starting to become more of the end users. Like Matt was saying, it also includes the end users, which is basically a ever-growing market.
We can break down the space economy into kind of three core categories. There's launch, there's building of satellites, and there's selling of data. It's really all there is right now. Now, there's going to be some little tidbits like sending something to the moon or maybe a deep space mission here and there that's happening by NASA. But for the crux of it, that's the breakdown. That's it.
So far.
So
Yeah.
far.
Are we talking about the space economy as today, or are we going to like pass
Well, let's
around
talk
some
about
drugs and talk about the
AstroForge,
future?
man. I mean, that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
Of course, there's a whole bunch of future markets, right? There's a whole bunch of cool things we can go look at. But when we talk about an economy, that's something that exists today, not guaranteed for the future.
I don't know that that's true. I mean, I think the internet economy is a good example here.
Yeah.
When you started, we thought about the internet economy as just like it's a different medium to sell physical shit, right? Like I can now sell my books or anything else through a website. And what the internet has born is a fundamentally different way of thinking about what is a product or service and how
Yeah.
do I deliver.
I mean, it basically sells porn now.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Amongst other things, yes.
Isn't it like
But,
30% of the internet
There's so much
traffic?
more than that, Robyn.
I think it is so much more than that.
No,
I actually think it's like
crypto.
70%
in
is porn.
crypto.
Yeah,
We
well,
can buy
yeah,
porn
in crypto.
on the internet.
Yeah,
But-
okay, fair.
But even then, like if you asked people about the internet in the late 90s or early 2000s, they would have never come up with the concept of crypto. Like it is a like
It's a layer of infrastructure
Yeah.
that has allowed other.
Okay, let's not talk about
Tech.
crypto for a second because crypto is still
I like it the least, but it is.
But let's use an analogy that's like more realistic is what Amazon was started on, selling books. The product didn't change. The mechanism through which you sold it changed. The economy of selling a book is still the economy of selling a book. The way people purchased that and the way it was delivered changed. I think that's what we're actually seeing in space right now is we are developing the internet of space. It's called launch, right? It is the ability to get there and then go
Sure.
do something
Yeah.
that you can sell back to the planet. But it's not, the internet isn't the way to sell the internet.
So here's the thing. When I think of space economy, I think of it like a bi-directional imports and exports. And right now there's a whole lot more of export than import. And so when we talk about space stations on the moon or some of the other stuff that's out there, it's like, okay, cool. How does that turn into an import, right? You just said it, sell it back to the people on the Earth. And if you're going to have a moon colony or Mars colony, unless it's under the model of like Antarctica, where it's just purely for research and it's 100% reliant on importing all of the food and all of the other fungible products, as imports, and it doesn't export anything but data, like that's, it's okay, but then that's a different kind of economy than I think, the 2001 space station kind of economy.
Yeah, I think that's what we're all saying right now is there isn't an economy in space. There's an economy of selling back to space, and that's what we can look at, and that is provided in those three categories I listed, right? Launch, building satellites, and data sales, and that's really what it encompasses right now. Doesn't mean it'll be the same in the future, but as of today, that's what it is.
I think there's a national security aspect of it as well, from the standpoint of like nobody's going to pay for insurance to not get hit by an asteroid, but that is like a nation state level kind of service that needs to be sold somewhere, right? So like, I don't know,
We can talk about the future of it, right? What other economies are there? I think there's a whole bunch
trying to
of
break your brain.
cool economies out there, right? You got point-to-point travel.
Yeah.
You got what we talked about is this like the lunar economy. Does that actually come to fruition? Do we have people living on the moon as we go forward? You got space stations, and what are we going to do there? What is the one called Lunar Gateway going to happen? Are we going to see the ISS actually deorbited? Is one of these other companies going to put a space station into space as we go forward? And then obviously the one we're looking at, which is asteroid mining and resource extraction.
That's the only
as a
one that
whole.
matters, really.
It's obviously the biggest and best one, and that's why we're going after it.
I do have some bad news here.
Oh,
Our
man.
best friend, ChatGPT, I asked it to give me an in-depth analysis of the space economy. It's just sort of a, let's see what it comes up with. And space resources was not in there once.
Sam Altman's a listener to us, and so I'm sure that, Sam, if you're listening, which I know you are, can you please add that?
Yeah, it was actually
because that's how ChatGPT
Isn't
works, right?
That
You
how
just
work? You just Sam just types in.
I'm just going to
"Please
type this
add
in.
this."
Make sure you say please and thank you.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it'll
Sam's got a
And this is the reason why it's not, because what we're going after actually isn't part of the space economy. We are going after what is part of the Earth-based economy and selling critical minerals. And I think that's the difference here is we're not saying that there is an economy going to develop in space by what we're doing in AstroForge. We actually bring back material to sell it on the planet, and it becomes part of the mining economy.
So far.
This is my whole crux with what is happening there. Until there is a constant human presence, whether it's on the moon, whether it's on some random space station, whether it's halfway between Mars and Jupiter, I really don't care where it is that we can go feed into, that's not going to exist. We are going to sell, our customers are all on Earth as an asteroid mining and resource utilization company. That's where I project they're going to be for the next 10 to 30 years.
When do you think that flips? When do you think that there's actually, like, if we're just going to use your sort of like functional definition of like, in order for there to be a space economy, you have to have a transaction that exists entirely within space. We mine material on an asteroid, sell it to some spin-off colony that wants to build something on Mars.
I would like to think we're on a path now to go colonize another planet, whether that's Mars or Venus is I think still up for debate, actually. For me to predict the future, if I was really good at that,
colonize Venus?
why would you not?
Because it's closer to the sun, and when the sun goes away, you're going to get burned up first.
Hold on, the sun doesn't go away for 4 billion more years before it starts expansion, right? Like,
Yeah.
what are you talking about? So
I mean, it still goes away first.
Venus is a lot hotter. It's very dense. It's got a lot of stuff we need on it. I don't think Venus is a bad planet to go look at colonizing. Mars is very difficult to colonize as well, right? Both of
I'm
them
not-
have a lot of challenges.
I'm OPA, man. Outer Planets Alliance.
I don't even know where to go. So, like, what, you want to colonize Jupiter? What are you trying to do?
Krystle, I'm going to ground this a little bit and bring us back. You worked at one of the only other companies outside of maybe like us and Varda that are truly betting on a new space economy.
Intuitive Machines, Firefly. There's quite a few that are really angry at you right now.
Sure, but like I'm working off of your
Inversion.
definition. Like those are launch.
By definition, what? Gravitics?
Working off of
Rocket
your
Lab.
Axiom.
definition. Let me finish the question. How did you talk about it internally? Like, was there a disagreement on what a new space economy is, or did you have to define it in a way that made your business make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think, how Matt said it, you have the launch economics, which I think we've talked about this already enough. We don't need to get into that. And then you have the satellite economics, which is really about, the data. What do we return to Earth for end users on Earth? And then you have the more exploration. I think that's kind of the emerging part of the space economy that maybe I think we fall into. I think my prior company, some of them fall into the exploration economics. So, more of an upfront investment for a longer term, longer game payoff. And that is, I think, where we are headed. And I think that, we want to get there before the market all of a sudden is like, oh shit, like, how do we get this supply? How do we get these resources off Earth? Like, we are already paving the way to get there. And that's kind of how we thought about it internally at other companies as well. Like, how we start thinking about this now.
Yep.
It's a complex problem to solve. And we need to start thinking about how we can actually monetize in the meantime, but start unlocking these problems to foster where we see markets going in the future.
Yeah, the problem is with all of these companies other than ours, you're betting on growth in areas that currently right now have either zero or very, very low growth. When we talk about colonizing the moon, current people that live on the moon, as far as I'm aware, are zero.
Yep.
And so you have to bet on infinite growth. And that's a really hard thing to bet on, right? Whether you're a company, whether you're an investor, as you go into is how much are these growth rates going to go into the future? You're asking yourself to be a predictor of the future, to have that output Robyn's talking about, right? To have that export. And I think as humans, we're pretty bad at predictors of the future. If I was better, I'd probably have a cooler car.
Or you'd be a venture capitalist. I mean, that's
Probably
sort of-
still want to be a venture capitalist, but
sort of core to what they need to be able to do.
I thought it was just spend other people's money, but okay, whatever Chap says.
Oh man.
But yeah, I mean, I
Thanks.
think one has helped unlock the other, right?
Yep.
Launch and then more capable satellite spacecraft, and then now that kind of unlocks into the exploration zone, and that's where we are. And I'm glad there's company like us that are thinking about these things, because we will need to have that infrastructure in place.
I think everybody, or at least all of the folks online, point towards launch being the thing that unlocked the sort of like transition from old space to new space. Do you agree with that? And is there something else that people are missing that helped sort of usher in this new space?
Honestly, I don't really like the old space, new space analogy.
Really? Why?
Well, it implies that there was some sort of like magical barrier that went before was old and now it's new. And the reality is this transition has been happening since the very first rocket launch. And just like there was a lot of uncertainty about how much it was going to cost and how hard it was going to be in the initial launches, so the government had to cover that cost because it was in the public's interest, and no investor would have put money in it because nobody could tell them what the return was, right? So, but over time, as that uncertainty started to go down, then the government started to get out of the way, and of course, it's never like it comes in fits and starts. But over time, different private companies have started to see a path to being profitable. Like it's not like SpaceX one day woke up in the middle of aerospace and said like, let's change everything. There were companies before them, some of which failed, like Bigelow and Kistler, some of which succeeded, like Orbital Sciences. I mean, that's a private company that has done very well for itself. And in fact, one of my favorite pictures is a Dragon capsule, orbital science capsule and the space station from who was the guy? Was it Bigelow? No,
Bigelow. The
Bigelow.
inflatable?
Yeah, the inflatable. All three of those modules were on the space station at the same time. And so here you had three completely different private companies, like modeled completely differently. One was publicly traded, one was like effectively private equity, another one was basically a hotel guy, right? Like, and they're all on there on this government funded research product. That's the whole point, right? The government helps to back some of these big infrastructure things, just like they did with the highway. And this is a continuous process. And for us, for asteroid mining, we are just now at the point, I think, where when SpaceX came in and the aerospace industry was in fact ready, the infrastructure was ready to do private base commercial launches and really innovate and take it to the next level. I think that's exactly where we are with deep space right now. And we are ready to start following the wave of commercialization further out.
We like to kid ourselves as humans and to pretend like old space, new space, kind of like Robyn's saying, or something special happened or there was some inflection point. I actually think it's really simple, right? Charlie Munger has never lied to us about this. Like, show me the incentive, I'll show you the outcome. It's that simple. In the early days of space, if you look at Saturn V, if you look at Shuttle, the incentive was for large government contractors to run cost plus contracts, and they made their money off charging the government more. If you have a cost plus contract and you're going to make 15% off any labor you do, you're probably going to do a lot more labor because that's how you make your profit.
And you're going to take your time.
And you're going to take your time, right?
And you're going to put all kinds of things to not fail, because actually you get penalized a lot if you're late, if you fail. So you're going to pad all that stuff.
Yep. So what did we start seeing happen? And actually this started happening in the late 80s, early 90s, is we saw some commercial use cases of satellites. There was always some, but as we went through it, it became things like DirecTV. Right? We now had satellite TV. We had HughesNet. We had these things come up, and that was not a cost plus contract. That was a commercial based contract. And so the incentive alignment was actually build the cheapest spacecraft we can to get something to our end users. That then continued with some of the early contracts you got, like SpaceX's commercial crew contract, right? Things like this as we went through all the way to Starlink. And now
if you really want to go back on that, COTS.
Yeah, the COTS program, right? That was the first one that SpaceX got. I think that was like a $1.4 billion contract, right?
No, it was like $283 million.
Okay,
it was like the rounding error of the other two capsules that were going on at the time, and they were like, "Oh, we're going to take some risk mitigation money and throw it towards SpaceX," and it was $283 million. That was a contract.
But let me give you another sense here of like, there's a rocket called SLS. It stands for the Senate Launch System.
Oh,
right. And it is the largest cost plus contract ever. Right. It's a $24 billion cost plus contract. Mm-hmm. And what have they done?
Yeah.
Like, what is going on here? Nothing's happening. You spend $10 million on a pad or $10 billion on, like, you just see these overruns go through. It's a jobs program. That's when you lose the other side. On the other side of that coin, we have SpaceX launching a Falcon 9 every 5 minutes to throw 1 billion Starlinks up that are trying to feed the world internet. And the reason that can go so fast and cheap is because there is an end user and a consumer product. We can argue about which one's better and all that. I'm actually not going to get, from an economic standpoint, the incentive alignment makes a lot of sense. That's why when you look at companies like ours, you have to have the incentive be that we are selling to an end user of something that is highly valuable. Our incentive is actually not to go build this overpriced, $5.5 billion Europa Clipper mission that's never going to fail, that can go mine an asteroid perfectly. In fact, we have a failure rate we accept as a company because we need to keep the price low, because our job is to deliver core resources back to the planet. The incentive alignment matters a lot. And that's really what we're describing when we talk about old space to new space.
Yeah, value attracts value. And with private capital becoming more of a player, space is becoming it's become more of a market than these bespoke government missions.
Yeah, so I think if I were to summarize all of that, and Robyn, I think this is the point you were trying to drive home, that it's like not actually been like a core technological inflection point. It's just been a long sort of evolution of a market.
Yeah, and there's always other factors that come to play that are sometimes outside of any individual innovation, like sort of the pencil analogy. What does it take to make a pencil? It's amazing the number of things that have had to happen over many, many years that result in a really cheap wooden pencil with lead. Like, I know there's documentaries on that kind of stuff and like how it's made and all that. And you're like,
That show's amazing, right?
it's just like amazing the number of orthogonal technologies and innovations that have been made to be able to like stitch all these different products together. And that's as true for our industry as pencil.
I mean, if you ever watch a movie called Hidden Figures, it's about
Oh yeah.
three people that are computers that do hand calculations of trajectories. Right now, we just send that shit to AWS. They charge us a whole bunch of money and send it back. Like that whole thing has been productized into this very small form factor where before it would be hundreds of people. If you look at the number of people and the amount of GDP that went into building the Saturn V, it's insane to even think about. It's almost 5% of the country's GDP as we went on those moon missions. And now we can launch a rocket for what? I mean, a Falcon 9 cost, depending on what number you believe, anywhere between $30 and $60 million. Like that's, I don't know, some infinitesimally small fraction of GDP. It's a totally different way to think about it.
What do y'all personally, so outside of AstroForge, which is obviously the thing that we're most excited by, like what other trends around, I think Krystle, you said it well, like attracting value, are you excited about that will help float this entire sort of new wave of companies that we're part of?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Robyn mentioned a defense thing, and I think that's actually a really good area to point to where we're looking more now at like dual use commercial first technologies, but also supporting the defense supply chain. And I think with that attracting value, I think that's also kind of developing more technological advancement that could be used for defense purposes as well that maybe weren't as much before because of that incentive value chain.
What are you excited about, Robyn? You don't look very excitable right now.
You don't.
Oh man. I mean, look.
Is he only like this when I'm on the podcast, or is he always like
Yes,
this?
he's only like this when you're on the podcast.
That's what I thought.
Krystle.
That's what I thought.
Damn. All right, let the bagging begin. All right, fine. None of what is getting labeled as the space economy interests me that much. Like what you just said, Krystle, like, oh, they're going to float these companies and that kind of stuff. Like, I am not interested in floating any kind of companies, including this one. Like, I think where the economy is where the value proposition is. And a good friend of mine is always like, oh, I don't know what's going on, this and that. And he just looks at me deadpan and is like, follow the money. It's always follow the money. If there's money to be made, people figure out how to do it. I don't care whether it's finding a way to mine ore that's a little deeper down in the earth or getting in a ridiculous submarine made out of a material that was inappropriate for the particular application and going down. Like, if there's money to be made, people will try to do it, whether it's airplanes, spacecraft, or anything else. And we do have to pay attention a lot to that because, you use the Starlink example, and there's been like, I think I just saw the number, it was like 20,000 of the Starlink spacecraft so far have been deorbited, which is a nice way of saying, they come down into Earth and burn up. So whatever materials they were made out of vaporize on the way in. They burn up and vaporize. And like, what's the impact on that in the stratosphere? I have no idea. Is it a big deal? Is it not a big deal? Like, Earth's atmosphere is pretty big, so it's probably not a big deal compared to, any refrigerant company pumping out a bunch of stuff. But in the same way, there's a lot of money to be made in AI right now. And like, is that a good idea? Is that a bad idea? I don't know. So I don't really think much about the space economy other than like, if there's money to be made, somebody's going to try to do it.
Yeah, I think too, I hate this word, disruptors. I don't mean that. I mean,
I'm very disruptor.
We'll talk about that in a little bit too.
I mean, that's fundamentally why I was trying to be quiet on this episode. It's not really about you. It's like on the last one, I just kept talking over people, and then I listened to it. I actually listened to it. It's terrible. It's terrible.
Don't listen to it.
I'm just sorry, audience.
Don't listen to
all
it.
One of you.
But I mean, I think the old and new space. Yeah, I agree. I don't think that's kind of to circle back.
Yeah.
I think there's new space whatever you want to call them, current space companies that are probably also not going about it the right way. So I don't think it's this like linear thing. I think it's just there are more companies figuring it out.
Yep.
And, maybe actually, putting pen to paper versus hype. And I think we are one of those companies.
Paper.
Yeah. Pen to paper.
I'm just excited we all stopped being bitches. Like, that's the honest truth. 2015, when we were at Virgin, aerospace as a whole was scared of itself. I mean, you would be amazed. We all like to be revisionist history, but I'm sure you guys know SpaceX was always thought of like, who are these crazy people? They're never going to be successful. What
Oh
are they
my
doing?
God.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
ULA
yeah.
is the right
It was.
way. You know, we
Yes.
already
Actually,
have
even when I
built-
worked there, I was a little bit
Delta.
like, what have I done?
right as we look at this, and
Yeah, Rob and I will look at each other like,
what are we doing?
Clearly,
we've kind
that
of had
was-
this as a society. We've had this veil ripped off now, and you can have these really cool ideas. We're having the discussion right now of, you know, everybody's talking about, well, is AGI going to take over the world, and or is it going to kill us all? And I don't know. I'm really glad people are trying. And when it comes to mining asteroids, is it going to work? I don't know, but we have the balls to go try. And when it comes to things like solar power in space, do the economics make sense? Hell if I know, but I love that people are trying these ideas and going for it. I think even a decade ago, this was not socially acceptable to go do. You would have been laughed out of the room because everything was about how do we commoditize the internet? How do we go after this whole B2B SaaS movement that happened in kind of the valley as we look through? And aerospace was very, very kind of stodgy and suit and tie. And we've kind of ripped off that veil. And
Oh, not only suit and tie, but also cigarette and ashtrays.
that would have been really cool, but I did
It-
not have that when I was
Yeah.
there. But now we're talking about things like you see Starship, which is just fucking gigantic and keeps exploding, and like it's cool someone is trying. The rumor is Blue's going to announce new Armstrong soon, which will be a competitor to Starship, which would be awesome that somebody else is trying.
I mean, like, are we going to have to start like saying like all rights reserved to our last names and things? Like,
I don't know. I wish Blue would come up like, why are they calling it New
just to be
Armstrong?
clear, you're worried that someone's going to name a rocket? the
no, I'm
Ringette?
just. I actually think it's kind of
New
like.
Ringette. It's like a little tiny rocket. Like a little,
It's all right. No,
it's a model rocket made by Estes.
nobody would know how to spell it anyway, and it'd have to be a big rock to even fit my last name. You know, like,
I was thinking Esperinget.
ooh, Espa.
Oh God, this.
I don't know. I just, like leave Neil alone. Like there was so much pressure, performance pressure for Neil. Like he was just doing a job, and the next thing you know, he's like, "Oh, I'm the guy."
It is true, and like, yeah, it's kind of like, yeah.
Like leave the dude alone. Anyway, all right, whatever.
But I like that people are trying. I like that people are going big, and we might see a lot of people fail, but people are going for it, and they're not scared anymore. And that's a really cool time in history to be. We'll see if that continues, but
I'm just going
love
to prove
it's
that we
happening.
don't need Chap. I actually looked at his script ahead of time, and so I'm going to totally lean into you talking about Virgin.
You looked at the script?
Yeah, I found out last week that we have script, and so this week I'm like, oh, what does it say? And so I found out it's the questions that Chap asks.
Wait, so you're just reading questions off a script,
No.
and they're this bad?
You know what? You're going to have time to answer. We're going to move on to business strategy.
Oh, I
Like-
was going to actually ask a follow-up question to that. Like, so what are the technical problems that you hope? So if we're now in this place where like everybody's excited to go tackle the hard things, what are the hard things that need to be tackled? Like, what are the problems that if you can wave a magic wand, you could have companies go solve for us?
I would love to see one of the problems that I think we still have is that it's still very difficult to get off the planet. And there's a couple new technologies like
So like
Venus
an
Aerospace.
anti-gravity company.
I don't even think we have to go that extreme. I mean, you
would be
talk
cool.
about RDEs, right? A technology that's been theorized for a long time. It's been in Russia for a long time.
Startup doing
Done a
that.
whole bunch. And there's Venus Aerospace that finally got the first stable combustion that was publicly advertised, right? And that's really cool to see it. Now, it's
I like
probably
the
not,
caveat.
well, because we're
I
pretty
know
sure it's
why.
happened quite a few times. But it's really cool to see it. And like, yeah, the performance numbers probably aren't where we want them to be, and it could be better and blah, blah, blah. But like, we've broken through into a new type of propulsion, and it's feasible, and it's not just on a piece of paper. And that's actually a really big thing to think about, because something is like an RDE that can shift the whole way we think about getting off the planet. It can turn something like a Falcon 9 into a Falcon Heavy, right? And increase mass. You look at things like Starship just
Or
being
safety.
massive, or safety. How does it increase safety?
Well, because you can spend mass on safety or performance. Like there's
That is
different ways
not-
to spend.
That is not true.
Oh yeah, totally.
Look at okay. I'll just bring up the analogy of trijets, right? Like three-engine jets,
Trijet.
3-engine jets from the 70s. That were
Oh,
regulated.
those
Okay.
pieces of shit.
Well, they had more accidents than dual jets, and they did it because it was better to be safe with more mass. So
No, that's a terrible analogy.
I think it works
Let's
perfectly
move on
well.
to business. Let's move on to the script. Business strategy.
Okay, chat, follow the script.
To be clear, business strategy was his question, so I'm going to let you ask the question.
Well, I don't actually have it in front of me.
In a nutshell, our podcast.
Look, somewhere in there, you're going to ask about business strategy and how does it change over time for startups like us.
Sure. How does business strategy change over time for startups like us?
Well, leaning into Matt's discussion about Virgin, it was we've talked about it before. It's a great technical project, terrible business plan, right?
Yep.
It actually started out like
It actually started out as just a shitty business plan. Not terrible.
well, it was actually risk mitigation. It was actually business risk mitigation for
Galactic.
for Virgin Galactic and the not Spaceship One, the
So everybody knows that Virgin Galactic had this thing where we would take people up in something called Spaceship 2.
I mean, they're
It held
still in
6
business. They're
people.
still
Okay, it's kind of.
doing it.
And it flew on something called White Knight 2.
Yeah.
And
So
White Knight 2 was a
White Knight 2.
completely carbon fiber,
I mean,
pulley controlled
it still
aircraft.
is.
Yeah, I think it was the largest aircraft controlled by physical controls without hydraulics.
I'm pretty sure that's now the Spruce Goose.
I guess that would be before. Whatever.
No. I'm saying the other one, Stratolaunch now has the largest.
That's hydraulics. That's
Is it
747s.
hydraulics?
All right.
747s, right? So
Oh yeah, fair enough. All right, we're deep into the rabbit hole.
Yep.
I don't know what I was talking about because I was talking about in a good technical
Love it.
way.
Took 'em off.
So
How to get Matt
Virgin
to agree.
Galactic's whole
Just
idea was,
keep
hey, we
talking.
drop a people carrier off of this, right? Called Spaceship 2. What if we put a rocket on it? Well, then we could, instead of doing people, we could reach orbit and we could put mass to orbit and we could sell that as an offshoot to the Virgin Galactic business model. That was the whole core concept of the company
yeah.
when we started. And I mean,
Yeah, it turns out you can only get about a paint chip into space.
well, there was a couple problems with it. The mass to orbit was extremely small. I mean, how much was it? I
was
don't think
negative.
I ever saw it positive. So I think
Yeah,
it was always
negative.
negative.
That's
So
why I
you
say
couldn't
paint
reach
chip.
orbit.
I mean, it's not really true. I mean, like you could have and la la la. Let's not.
It's like
get-
single stage to orbit spacecraft. On paper, they always work.
Yeah.
And then you go try to build them and they never work because mass margins are a thing and it's really hard to build it that efficiently. Also, White Knight 2 was just not an aircraft capable of doing multiple flights. It had massive cracks in it, massive cracking. I think they've already replaced it as it's gone through. It was just not sustainable to do it multiple times. So that company, as already a business mitigation to make a rocket, then said, well, that's not going to work. We have to continue to evolve. What do we do, Robyn?
Well, you were talking about Galactic. I'm talking about Orbit.
We haven't got to, well, then we started Orbit, right? Well, actually, we started Launcher One LLC.
Yeah, whatever.
The Virgin Diaries to be continued.
Man, so much of life just pumped
Yeah.
in that. So it started out, one of the big customers was actually OneWeb. And so we were going to put up like constellations or at least parts of constellations, right? And it turned out, kind of too expensive to do that. It didn't actually work out that well. And so then it started to turn out like, well, if you have a rocket hanging off an airplane, you could be rapid response, right? Like you have to pay a premium, like maybe a charter jet or something, but I can get you there really fast. And then it turned out even that was kind of,
That was the Victus Nox program, right?
I don't remember all the names.
I think that was okay.
I think I was deep into like issue tickets and trying to make sure that we didn't kill anybody. And even that was kind of too expensive, right? Like even charter jets have a price point that eventually it's not worth it. Unless you're, Jeff or Elon or whatever, Charlie Munger. And then, so it kind of turned into even more defense, for like force projection, right? So the business strategy changed over time from going from selling launches really cheap, which I'll call kilograms to orbit, to convenience. I want to get there when I want to get there as quickly as possible, to actually, it doesn't really matter whether or not we launch. We're just going to park this 747 on Guam and project that we could launch something very soon and, from this particular location. So the business strategy changed over time and it turned out didn't work for them. But I think that's true of all startups and companies. What you enter in doing changes and can change and can evolve.
I mean, just to bring it back, remember the famous one of Netflix used to send you DVDs in the mail. Now it's a streaming service. Like
I think I
companies
was like
have
the
to be-
last one. I think I was like the last DVD customer. They were like kept sending me
I
notices.
think
like,
I still have some Netflix DVDs.
Well, of course you do. Everybody does.
Probably owe a lot of money in back fees then. I wouldn't.
No, they just eventually charge you for the disc.
Yeah.
Trust
But I
me
mean,
on that
companies
one.
have to be adaptable and be able to you can't just have an idea, think we're always right, and then go after it and be unwilling to change in any way, shape, or form. that's pretty core to every startup that's out here. As soon as you get stuck in your ways, you fail. I mean,
Blockbuster.
even look at SpaceX, right? If we're going to bring it back to there, SpaceX started off, Falcon 1 with the original view of going to the Mars,
Kmart.
right? Like there's infinite examples of people needing to have micro pivots or a little bit change in directions at forks in the road to make a company sustainable.
Sears.
Are you just pointing out bankrupt companies?
Yeah,
Yes.
I think that's the theme.
Can you give
of
some
it.
better ideas
I was
other
trying
than,
to see- I was
other
trying to
than
see if
dead
he was gonna
ones?
bring in something else that was space related, but then I just
No.
appreciated the
Sears.
late 80s, early 90s, like
Oh God.
Sears, Kohl's still in business? Like
Yeah, dude, I got
Kohl's
some-
is,
I got
they're-
some
but
Kohl's
only
cash.
because they're like an Amazon drop off now.
yeah.
God, I went. Don't even get me started on that.
I feel like you've been waiting to say
We will
something.
Say
see.
more?
No,
Yeah,
I
you've been-
think no.
No, this is it. It's
Amazon
not getting
returns.
better,
Oof.
Krystle. You're
Yeah,
just
Krystle,
going
you
to have
gotta
to jump in.
now or never.
I think we're okay. Yes, bold technical vision, right? Every strategy ideally starts.
Can you use a movie
with
voice for that?
Bold
Oh,
technical
vision.
Rachel has so
but-
much editing on this podcast.
So, yes, your strategy starts with a bold technical vision. Then you hire people like me to help ground the company with customer demand while you focus on execution, while you focus on partnerships. Yes, can it survive launch? Can we actually get this thing in space? But also, who's going to pay for it, right? How
Yeah,
are we
Krystle,
going
who is gonna pay for
right,
it?
so that's, that is, government interest, right? Government, commercial. What problems are we actually solving? I think those come later, and those are the hard questions. And I think it's more about it's less about saying we're going to disrupt or revolutionize, and it's more about here's how we're going to actually generate reoccurring revenue. And I think some people lose sight of that. Some companies lose sight of that. It's maybe not as sexy, right, as having some, whatever fireside chat where you say you're going to be doing revolutionizing X, Y, and Z. But it is essential to figure out what is the near-term demand and meet those demands in the market and scale the company and ensure that you're here tomorrow.
But then how do you think about, and this is especially important in a hardware company, some of those demands oftentimes require technical trade-offs. What we want to build versus what people want us to build.
Yeah, I think you can't lose sight of your long-term vision and goals, right?
They don't require technical trade-offs. I think when they require technical trade-offs, that is a pivot. And we're not willing to do a major pivot. I'm not going to start building spacecraft for low Earth orbit
Right.
for Golden Dome.
Yeah.
Like that's just not something we want to do, right? Because that doesn't fly into or play into the overall mission, which is to supply the Earth with its critical resources.
Yeah.
Like it just doesn't. And there's plenty of people out there that want to go build low Earth orbiting spacecraft for a Golden Dome. We're not going to go compete in that area. I think we have to be able to go compete in the areas we're really well equipped to, which is outside of the orbits of Earth, right? Or I guess the moon is still in orbit, so I can't really say that, but outside of geo, right? Like into lunar orbit, into deep space, where do we have an angle there? And is there somebody willing to buy our product with minor modifications to make it work in a different regime?
Yes. I mean, could our spacecraft be used in geo applications? Potentially. But LEO, I agree, is a big step back as a company.
Leo's also boring as shit. God, it's so lame.
How awesome is
Why
it?
are you looking at me?
How awesome is it that we're sitting here and we're like, oh, Leo is so boring. That was
boring.
so yesterday.
No, I mean, everyone's
But can we
everyone's
admit,
focused on Leo.
I mean, I've said this a lot, like the space shuttle ruined my childhood.
Yeah.
I just want to point that out.
Wow.
Say more words.
Do I need to? It's just like we went to the moon and then we're like, hey, we got this idea. Let's build this thing we're going to call reusable, but it's really not reusable. And we're just going to fly it to Leo every once in a while. And like, we're going to orbit the planet.
Yeah. The space shuttle just represents like an omnibus budget bill, right? Like it was just like the ultimate compromise. And it took us, close to 30 years to figure out what seemed obvious in the 1960s, that you should separate payload from people. Like you don't need to take up expendable spacecraft on with non-expendable people.
I mean, it is really cool. Like you can go see it at the LA Science Museum or whatever, right? It's really cool to go look at the space shuttle. But
I mean, the engineering on it is absolutely amazing.
Phenomenal, right? But at the end of the day, you look at it and you're like, hold on, why does it have wings? Like, it works really well as a rocket. Why does it cost so much money? Like, the last refurbished of the space shuttle was $1.5 billion. Holy shit.
In what year? In what
2012.
$2012.
So I'm going to round up with inflation to $3 billion. Pretty sure I'm accurate there. That's That's like 1,000 Falcon 9s.
Yeah, it was just the years start to matter, right? Not just because of inflation and all that, but because the program was around so long. You could be like, oh, space shuttle
I
was
think
like
the first
500.
launch was 1977, right? That was with the white tank.
No,
Shuttles first launch.
I thought it was 81.
I'm
1981.
almost positive it was 77.
All right, fact check
Fact check
time.
us, Chap. Live
Hey,
fact
do we
check.
have like a theme song for like a little jingle when we're
I
going to
was
do a
thinking
fact check?
jingle
If we
would be
needed a
appropriate.
theme song for every fact check that we needed to do on this,
Be
we
all
would just,
jingles all
we
the
would
time?
be a radio station. We
Well, the
would
thing
just
is,
play jingles
hold on.
all
Let's
the
be
time.
real.
What year was the first space shuttle launch?
Just so you know, if I'm wrong, we're editing it out, and if I'm right, we're
absolutely
leaving
Are
it in.
no edits.
Oh, April 12th, 1981.
That's because you were alive back then, Robyn.
Yeah.
Damn.
Just casual ages.
You didn't see that coming?
I am, you know what? That's harassment right there. That's some age. I am a protected class.
All right. Any closing thoughts on space economy before we go to?
Was that your whole agenda? Was just like 2 questions, and then you just let us run with it?
I mean,
I thought we were going to have like a public narrative
Yeah,
versus what's going on inside. I
to
thought
imply
different
that
pressures.
I let you run with things implies that I have some degree of control over the two of you and your conversational directions, which I'm honored, but I don't think is accurate.
Okay.
Yeah. So any last closing thoughts on the space economy before we answer some
I'm
questions?
never reading the script again.
It's just goes to show that reading the script is a complete waste of our time.
Yeah, I
Jeff
agree.
doesn't even follow it.
I even tried to fit in one of his script
Oh,
things,
wow.
and it was like, it was so awkward. Fail.
You didn't fail. You did a great job. All right, we're gonna go to questions now. Starting from Wawa Machine 23.
What are Wawa? What
You don't know what
It's
a
like a
Wawa
Labubu?
is?
I don't know.
You don't know what a Wawa is?
No, what
It's
the?
the
Wow.
best like gas station / convenience store on the East Coast.
I don't
Oh,
go to the East Coast. I
yeah.
thought we got this clear with Fireflies.
No,
I don't
well,
go to that part of the country. It
that's
sucks.
that's
It's hot
your
and
loss.
humid or cold.
All right.
Why do I want to go there?
Have you guys decided on the architecture for returning mass back to Earth? Is it going to return to a space station to be loaded into a reusable vehicle, or is it going straight into reentry and skipping
I
steps?
just
I
did
love
the
the
math for
question.
this.
I love
And the answer is no, it's not going to go into fucking orbit. I keep getting asked this question. Somebody kept asking me this question.
I thought we answered this on the air at one point.
What?
Well, if we didn't do it effectively.
Yeah.
All right.
There you go.
We are not returning to orbit. It's extremely difficult from a delta V perspective to return to orbit. It's not really feasible. We're going 16,000 kilometers a second. You need to shave off that
Wrong
speed.
units. 16 kilometers, not 16,000.
Sorry, yes. No, wait, how fast are we? 16,000. What are we going when we hit? What was the study to NASA?
I thought it was 11 kilometers per second.
Okay. We're going 11 kilometers a second.
I was like, well, maybe he's talking about miles. And I was like, no, that's still
Forget the
wrong.
units, whatever.
Like
It's really
16,000.
hard to burn off that much speed, especially on a mass. If we're going to bring back 1,000 kilograms, that's a lot of delta V to shave off. Keep in mind, the spacecraft has 5 kilometers a second of delta V on it, right? So we cannot slow down enough to go into low Earth orbit.
Mhm.
And in fact, it would take massive amounts of fuel to even be able to do that.
Mhm.
So we need to hit the atmosphere to slow us down. That is a big part of it. That is what heat shields do. We're very close to the same speed that the Apollo missions hit the atmosphere at. And that is how you burn off the energy, right? That is how you are able to land. So it is kind of impossible for us to go into low Earth orbit unless you want to get super crazy and think about skip trajectories, which are notoriously hard to actually compute. But on top of that, Orion attempted a skip trajectory, and it's why the heat shield failed. And they don't really know why. So there's a lot of ambiguity around heat shields and skip trajectories as well. It's what we do on Mars all the time. But Mars has a much different atmosphere than we do here.
That's way thinner.
Mm-hmm. I think the question, I mean, it's coming from the right place, probably about how we could provide resources, not just back on Earth, but in space. But unfortunately, it seems like the physics would be challenging.
Well, I mean, if there was a customer that wanted to buy the material in orbit, then we would design a mission and a spacecraft that could deliver it to orbit.
Yes.
The difference there is a trade-off between mass. So if somebody wanted to pay us 1,000 times the price,
Yeah.
we could fly back
Please
1
call
kilogram
me.
and slow it down, no problem, right?
Yes.
Because it's a lot less.
Someone wants to just
Yes.
like have a trailer full of iron floating around in space. We could do that too.
Yes. The space economy is not there yet, but when it is, we will be ready.
I still don't think it's going to use iron, but that's a different
Yeah,
problem.
Chap was making the point that like iron is worthless, and so therefore that's the analogy. Except unless you work at this company, you're like, oh, iron in space is worthless. Of course it is.
All right. Next question from learn_dad. When's the actual first mining mission planned for?
Krystle.
First actual mining mission.
Yeah.
Why are you asking me? Why are you asking me?
Because he couldn't remember the number, so he deflected.
No, we
Now,
know
see,
internally when we
he
are
stalled
projecting
enough
that the
now
first
he
mining
remembers.
mission, when the first mining mission is going to be launched, we still are on track to mine an asteroid and bring it back before the end of the 2020s. Time will tell.
Okay. Before the end of this decade. Yeah. This is from
Before
Eli.
the end of this decade.
I say 2020, so I don't sound like JFK, right? Like I don't.
Yeah, you totally sounded
Yeah.
like I was trying to not sound like JFK right there.
All right. This one's from Eli. How do we prevent the platinum dust / particles from escaping and expanding into space?
Flypaper.
Excellent question. Matt?
Magic. No, this is something that's pretty near and dear to us, and I think when we're ready to go into some of the details on the refinery, we'll talk about it. There's a lot of IP restrictions on this that we're just not going to discuss on the podcast at this point in time.
Is this might be the first topic ever that Matt was not willing to talk about?
It's the core IP of the company.
Yeah, with some very smart minds thinking about this and working on this.
I don't know if that was meant that we're smart or we're stupid. I think we got called stupid by Krystle in a roundabout way.
I kind of think so, but I couldn't tell. How do you know you're really stupid? You can't tell that you were being...
Smart people at this company, they're the ones working on the refinery.
That is where I shine. Thank you.
Huh.
All right. Two more. One from Ink from a Stone. How much fuel are you sending with you?
I mean,
do you have to refuel?
no, we don't have to refuel.
Okay.
We launch as a all-in-one spacecraft. So everything that we use on the mission, we take with us. Vestry is going to be electric propulsion. So we use xenon gas. Actually, it's a supercritical fluid at this point, but that detail doesn't matter at the moment. As our propellant, I'm a propulsion guy, so I have a hard time saying fuel because it's not fuel; it's inert, but it's a propellant, and we use solar power to create ions and then accelerate those ions to high velocity, produce tiny amounts of thrust, but an incredibly good gas mileage. So that's it.
So we have a Prius of spacecraft, is what you're saying.
Oh man, Matt's about to his head just like
Prius
look at
isn't
the
even that
vein.
good in
It's
gas
like
mileage.
pulsating on
It's
his
actually
forehead.
it's like 44 miles to the gallon. Like, okay, good job, Toyota.
It was
What a
just there.
shitty car.
You had to. I
had
agree.
do it.
That
It
was
a
that
layup.
was sweet.
So sorry. This is
actually-
Ink
it's actually
podcast
much
might be
more-
missing some more people next week.
I think
from a Stone's part 2 question. Do we use process automation software on the spacecraft right now? I think it's effectively saying like how much of AI, like how much do we use AI in our software?
That's like saying, do you use the internet to do your job? I mean, basically everybody's using AI, whether you even know it or not anymore. Like, period.
It's a hard one because we've used this word AI to describe LLMs. And are we running a LLM on the spacecraft? Absolutely not. Are we doing a whole bunch of things that...
Have you seen the latest release in GitHub?
God. We're doing a lot of things that are commonly referred to as perception or machine learning. I mean, that's a big part of the spacecraft. But like, how do you denote this going forward? I don't fucking know. We use modern software and modern math techniques to process and fix problems and identify the asteroid and do the landing as we go forward. None of it is magic. All of it's really well understood by a lot of people with PhDs, and it's math.
Cool. We use a lot of complicated math. This last one is from Zolt.
To be a Prius.
Hopefully I pronounced your name correctly. And this one feels like an asking for a friend question.
Oh no. Oh no.
Let's let Krystle answer it. Krystle,
All right.
you're up. No
Yeah,
matter
all
what
right,
it is.
Krystle, this is
Rachel,
yours.
get ready to edit it out.
All right.
Okay.
I'm just going to, I don't even know how to break this one down. So I'm just going to ask it verbatim. I have a question about protecting your spacecraft from cyber threats coming from Earth while the vehicle is traveling through space. I assume it would be challenging for a would-be space hacker who might hypothetically be out there with a giant backyard dish to sneak in malicious commands and mess with your mission. But since impossible is nothing, how do you secure your TLM/CMD data channel? And how did it evolve from Odin to now Vestry?
Hypothetically.
Hypothetically. Sorry, before she answers, Zol, or whatever your name is, thank you. You're going to get a free t-shirt, so email us your address, and you just get a t-shirt.
Whoa. I will give him a sweaty t-shirt.
Definitely sweaty.
It will not, sure.
It'll be
might have some
used.
sweaty.
Go ahead, Krystle. Can you let us know
Yeah.
how we?
Krystle.
Cybersecurity, right? That's
Yeah.
also that's another buzzword, which is now kind of part of the fabric of our lives as well. So
Unless you're a customer for Target or something. But yeah, whatever.
without going into too much detail, that is something that we take very seriously in this industry, and
This is the worst
We-
question Dodge I've ever seen. I'll tell you how we solved it on Odin.
come on, guys, help me out.
That was like a
Don't try
great
it.
deflection.
Don't try it.
Don't try it.
Yeah.
I will find you.
It's not any more complicated than this. The
Yeah.
same way that
All the
you
people on this
log
on this
into your
podcast,
bank
you don't
account.
Yeah,
wanna-
I mean,
yeah.
It's
there's
end-to-end
standard
encryption.
Exactly what I mean. Like we have encryption everywhere. You don't even notice it anymore. That's
But
the
I mean,
thing.
on Odin, the way we solved this on Odin, I didn't say it. It just didn't work.
Hypothetically.
Oh, didn't
Odin.
the way we solved it by it didn't work.
Odin, we just didn't turn it on, so you couldn't actually
Yeah,
command it.
actually, you definitely, you know what? You get a clean T-shirt if you can talk to Odin.
Yeah.
I will give you the
Dare you
keys.
please?
Let me
show
let me
us
let me
your-
send you the encryption
have
keys.
your friend show us.
No,
their
the nice thing
prowess.
is, okay, to answer this question seriously, in both instances of Odin and Vestry, this is actually so there is going to be encryption we do and things like this when we're talking with the spacecraft, especially in the higher data rate modes. But the real security here is that you need a fucking 20 meter plus dish to talk with it, right? So it's not like you can be in your backyard hacking a spacecraft. Like if you're at the point you have a 20 meter dish, it's detectable, it's picked up, a lot of things can pick it up. And this is why we file licenses. It's the same thing we did on rockets. Like,
Yeah, so you can just look at our license for the right frequency.
yeah, for the right frequency if you want.
Like, oh,
but there
this
is
is it.
protections afforded to us by the U.S. government and
Yeah.
other places. Say like, we're not gonna transmit on this. We're not gonna block you. Blah blah blah. And we all work together, actually, as a world, to make sure these are all successful.
ITU.
I too.
And so that's a really important aspect of this. So, look, at the end of the day, if somebody wants to hack us by building a 30 meter dish in their backyard, like,
Let us
that's
know so
cool.
that we
I'll
can
just
issue a
actually pay you for
contract.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let us-
Careers at astroforge.com.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Create your own
Please apply.
adventure. Yeah,
Yes.
totally.
Yeah.
We can do it. All right. That's all we have for today.
Hold on, really quick. Shameless plug.
Yes.
We
Are we
still
doing
have
ads?
some payload opportunities on our next mission.
Oh, nobody
Vestry.
listens this far on the podcast.
Oh, God.
You're supposed to say at the beginning.
Hit me up, please.
If you're bringing up sales, we really got to do that at the beginning or have like a
We can,
commercial
we
intermission.
can edit it, though. We
Rachel,
just need
add this to the beginning.
Yeah.
I will.
yeah.
Don't add at the beginning.
Shameless plug. We still have some payload opportunities on Vestry flying next year, 2026. Hit me up on the payload page of the AstroForge website,
Which is?
astroforge.com.
/payload.
Like, do you have to say that anymore?
I don't know. I just want to kind of know if Krystle knew what her website was.
Oh, okay, that's
It's
fair.
actually a
After her
podcast.
answer to the
Yeah.
last question, I'm going to start
after hers,
deflecting like,
Yeah,
well, it's the
political answer.
standard, it's very important, but it's the standard website with the
All right, we're gonna wrap it here. Thank you for bearing with us as we sort of meander through the space economy. Any questions? Send it to mailbag. I don't know how to end this one today.
I mean,
so thank
just
you.
apologies to Rachel.
Yeah. Thank you for Rachel.
Thank you for Rachel.
That's it. Just thank you for Rachel.